We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Oh my God, this show is loaded, my guy. This thing is an absolute house, a brick house, a beef house, however house you want. I got it for you.
Is it beef house?
It might be an apartment building. I don't know. But here we are. Let's start with, I don't even want to get into stories. Your life sucks. Let's get into some story. Let's get into the legit meat of the show here, starting with, can we start with the college football Madden rating players and then go into NFL Madden?
Okay.
Or do you want to close?
We can start with college.
Okay.
Probably go with the 99 club.
Yeah. Who is your 99 club in college football? I guess give us your first name.
Okay. So you got to keep the 99 club tight. 99 club's not for the faint of heart. It's for guys who are special at their respective positions.
Yeah.
Not just going to give out a 99 club entrance to, Sam Howell. He's not a 99 clubber. He's a very good quarterback.
Fair enough.
But Trevor Lawrence is a 99 clubber. Justin Fields was a 99 clubber. Those were guys who belong to that conversation. I don't think this quarterback class does. So the position I'm going to start with that I think there's a 99 clubber is running back. And it's sophomore Tank Bigsby out of Auburn. Not draft eligible, so technically doesn't belong in the show yet. But go watch his tape. He's a dude. I mean, he is the best size, speed, movement, skills, ability at the running back position in college football right now. The dude just has it. He's going to be a special player. Now, I don't think there's anyone necessarily, I don't think Breece Hall, he would be the tops, I'd say, of the draft eligible running backs for your, NCAA football 22 hypothetical ratings, but not mid 90s at best. He's not a 99 clubber.
How quickly are you going to get, by the way, before I jump into the Tank Bigsby analysis here, how quickly are you going to get NCAA 2022 or 2023? That is a must purchase. We might have to play it on the pod. That's going to be absurd.
Yeah, I don't know if I've told this story before, but I had to quit video games after college because I used to play somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 12 hours a day during my college career. Disaster. I was addicted to Halo 3. So I had to quit to be a member of society. I was very good at Halo 3, but I had to quit.
I fucking hope so.
And really haven't played video games since. I only play them very casually. I don't buy video games myself. I'll play them when other people are playing them at other people's places. But that might be the first game to buy.
I might
have to cop it.
You literally have to do it.
I'm going to buy it. I used to spend so much time on 07, I want to say. It was the one with Reggie Bush on the cover, and it had Steve Slayton and Pat White. And I would always be West Virginia.
There you go. I love running the wing T too. That was before obviously the NFL kind of, the Madden game started to put a little bit of it in there. But honestly, NCAA 13, 14, I was running wing T with every school in the country having a good time. Tank Bigsby, former 5-star, 6 foot, 204, and is a true freshman in the SEC. Ran an 86.9 PFF rushing grade and over 20 runs of 10 plus yards, was really fantastic breaking tackles. He had 14 broken tackles against Arkansas alone. And then had finished with 47 on the year. You don't see those types of numbers in the SEC. I think a good context for the broken tackle numbers are when you look at some of the best broken tackle rates in the college era at PFF. We've been doing this since 2014. It's normally the Big 12. The Big 12, you see a lot of Oklahoma backs break that, and then you see this past year, Javonte Williams in the ACC. You don't see these broken tackle numbers in the SEC. These are rare numbers, and especially for a kid who's only 18, 19 years old. That is just absurd.
And I was going to say, the biggest thing to keep in context there is not only is it in the SEC, it is only SEC. They didn't get the cupcakes that the SEC usually gets.
Well, Arkansas.
Okay, but yeah. But they only played each other. They were not playing the Citadels of the world, the South Alabamas of the world. They were not getting these cupcakes to shred tackles left and right on to pad those numbers. These were only supposedly solid competition, game in, game out.
These next 4 guys we talked a ton on the Monday episode because they're all 4 of these guys are on the freaks list. But the next one on your list is Evan Neal. You didn't call him a top 5, top 10 lock in 2022, but you're calling him a 99 overall 99. Player in NCAA 2023 or whatever.
Yeah, because he's going to have all these sort of athletic markers pumped up in that game for obvious reason. You're the number 1 freak on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. He's got the goods there. And as a sophomore, 86.4 run blocking grade, 73.1 pass blocking grade. Only getting better. I feel comfortable about him in the 99 club, and I feel comfortable about Tyler Linderbaum, the Iowa center, on the offensive line as well, being in the 99 club. Probably, I'm going to say, going to be the best center prospect that we've seen in the PFF era.
And the last one would probably be Ragnow,
Frank
right?
Ragnow, correct. So
Tyler Linderbaum, better than Frank Ragnow. 2 guys that have absurd athleticism. I think they were both top 10 on Bruce Feldman's freaks list.
Ragnow was back in the day?
Oh, no. I'm talking about Linderbaum and Neal.
Oh.
I don't know what Ragnow.
Linderbaum was, yeah.
Yeah, Linderbaum and Neal are both top 10. Next one here, and this is a crazy stat. Crazy little anecdote from the Feldman interview, which you should listen to after this. But Derek Stingley Jr. is supposed to be playing wide receiver this year. That's been like the rumor. They've been planning this since he got there. They told him when he got there that 3 years in, we're going to try and play on the offense side of the ball too. I didn't know. I thought it was just like, hey, this guy's really good. We might as well fucking do it. But that seems absurd. I can't believe that. That is crazy to me.
That's... Especially since you're obviously not practicing day to day for it, but that's the plan is, hey, in your 3rd year, you can do it. But
maybe they want him to get used to the position and develop, because obviously, like as a true freshman, he was a starter.
Yeah, that is that you don't need him. You don't want to risk his development on that side.
And they had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Like they were like, hey, you're not playing wide receiver and you're a true freshman.
Taking away any time from those guys for sure.
But they were saying, hey, when Chase leaves, when Jefferson leaves, and this receiving core at LSU is kind of young, maybe we need him to step up. If he runs 10, 15 routes a game, I'll throw up. I'll throw up every week.
I did used to love to do that in NCAA when you're playing the Dynasty, is just like flip that guy from CB to wide receiver, do it. Vice versa, just to see what they'd be at the other position.
So yeah, Derek Stingley, the 99 club, that was obvious, probably expected from frequent 2-4 draft listeners here. And the last one here was a total homer selection. Kind of ridiculous in my opinion.
I don't think
Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton. I'm still putting some of these other safeties in this class up there in the upper 90s, 95 plus, like Brandon Joseph, Jordan Battle. But Hamilton, the only safety getting that 99 honor.
There's my 99 club. Tank Bigsby, Evan Neal, Tyler Linderbaum, Derek Stingley Jr., and Kyle Hamilton. And you can't fucking argue against Kyle Hamilton. I would entertain anyone to try to disagree with that selection of it. You can't.
All right, maybe we will.
That's not a homer
maybe
pick.
We will. Were there anyone else kind of on the outside looking in that you want to bring up?
Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau, people are going to pump him up. I just don't think he's quite there from the skill aspect of it to join the 99 club. Could very well do it soon. I think Clemson defensive tackle Brian Breezy could as well. Obviously, after his freshman year, was the highest pass rushing grade of any true freshman last year. Was the number 1 overall recruit. Could join that here soon, but I'll believe it when I see it with those guys. These 5 I mentioned, we've seen it, and I believe it. And I know they're 99s.
Man, I can't wait for that game. How many 99s can you really put in college football? Because you also have group of 5. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how they freaking.
When you recruit like I used to in college football game, you get a few 99s every
year.
You're
recruiting shit, dude. You're trash at that game. Everyone knows it. That's why you don't bring it up. All right, that's why you had to quit. It's not because you were playing too much. It's just everyone was just dogging.
I played all the time and still wasn't good.
There was one time when I was going to Raiders games with my dad. There was a time where I was like a really young. I think it was Madden 2008, and the adults were playing. I was this kid, and this guy quit. This 35-year-old guy quit at halftime because he was 28-0. I wasn't playing him. And I was like, I'll pick up for him. I came back and won. I was Chris Johnson with the Tennessee Titans. I was going against the Rams. I'll never forget that moment. And maybe he let me win. I was young enough to maybe that he fooled me like that. But it was pretty sick. All right. For NFL Madden ratings, you have 2 quarterbacks listed as the most egregious listings here. Go ahead and read them off.
Yeah. So obviously you can go to the Madden website to see them all. We're not going to read them all off. But it was hard for me to pick which one was more egregious. The fact that Aaron Rodgers, after an MVP season,
still isn't a 99,
is the not even just not a 99. He's the 3rd highest graded quarterback in the game. He's got Tom Brady ahead of him. That one's absurd.
I don't think that's absurd.
Did you watch them both play last year? I know one lost to the other, but that's one game over the course of a full season where one decidedly outplayed the other over the year. So I'll just say that one's also 44. But the other one, I'm not the biggest defender of this guy. It is Kirk Cousins. But to give him a 79 in this game, to give him 1 more than Ben Roethlisberger, 2 behind Derek Carr, slap in the face.
Yeah.
He's a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. To give him 8 below Ryan Tannehill, no. Just no. That's way too low for him.
I don't want to get into this Madden rating garbage. I'm even upset that I let you have this as a segment on here. But like, how do they design like the catching for the quarterbacks? Like Aaron Rodgers has a 47 catching and Lamar Jackson has a 26. Are they like pulling that out of their ass? Like, I don't understand how they even have that big of a disparity.
Well, I do love that they gave Ryan Tannehill a 76 for catching because he did play wide receiver.
Thank God. But Russell Wilson has a 68. He's not even that far off.
Well, he played baseball. Obviously.
Do they go back and watch high school tape? I don't really know. I don't really have another egregious quarterback here. I think I'm not going to be really big on this one. I think all of these are kind of ridiculous, but here we are.
I will say this about Madden ratings. People shit on them. People shit on PFF ratings. It's because you can put down 100 perfect ratings and everyone just nods their head and says yes. But you put down one egregious one and everyone all of a sudden says they're shit. So I get that this is not an easy job to do.
Yeah. It's not an easy job to do, and also like I think a lot of it
we're very qualified to do this because we get shit on like.
I mean, how much of this is also out of their control? Like, is Madden gonna let like the people who come up with these ratings dictate like who's the best in the game? Like, imagine if they came up with a system like, yeah, Tom Brady's actually like a 6th best quarterback. It's like, nobody, he's on the cover, idiot. We have to bump his rating up. Like that's a fact. Like that's a fact. Like the marketing of this game matters way more than what anyone thinks the actual talent level of these players are. But I always bring the business side. I always talk about like the revenue and all this shit. But before we get to the running backs, I forgot to tell you before you jumped in, Western Southern, big sponsor of the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast. In these uncertain times, life is full of questions like when should I start thinking about life insurance? But however difficult these questions may be, Western Southern can help you answer them, backed by over 130 years of experience. Together, we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind. Western Southern Financial Group, life insurance, retirement, and investments. We are on to running backs. Most egregious, 2 Colts backs, 84 overall for Marlon Mack, 83 for Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor was the 3rd leading rusher in the NFL last year. Marlon Mack was his backup, and it wasn't even healthy.
I don't understand.
That one, I just don't know. I don't get that one. I mean, that one doesn't even need an explanation. We can just go on to wide receivers. We obviously don't. Running back's not our bag here at PFF, but I think we can ourselves deduce that one.
I kind of want to go over some other ratings. I kind of want to look at some others. I think that some of these things are always interesting. I mean, Aaron Jones at 91, Saquon Barkley at 90. How much of that is injury? Josh Jacobs ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe I do get on board with that. I mean, again, James Robinson already in 86 and Raheem Mostert's the same. If that doesn't say running backs don't matter, is Madden on our side? Is Madden on our side? They have James Robinson and Raheem Mostert over Austin Eckler. I can't get on board with that. Austin Eckler, I would argue, is better than Chris Carson. Chris Carson is the same rating as fucking Kareem Hunt. This is just, why did we do this as a segment? I will not understand.
I actually love this.
We'll continue. Wide receiver, your most egregious wide receiver rating.
This was not only the most egregious wide receiver rating. This was the most egregious rating, full stop. They have A.J. Brown as an 86 in the game. A.J. Brown could be the 3rd or 4th best wide receiver in the NFL. Very, very non-debatably, I'll say. Like, people wouldn't, you could say he's a top 5 wide receiver, and I don't think a lot of people would bat too much of an eye about that. Behind the likes of Robbie Anderson, Robert Woods, and I'm not trying to shit on those guys, but I don't think anyone in the right minds would say that.
You gave the wrong context.
Tyler Lockett?
You gave the wrong context here. I don't care who's ahead of him. The same rating was given to fucking Cole Beasley.
Oh, okay.
Cole Beasley got an 86, and A.J. Brown got an 86.
Yeah.
Just end the conversation.
Well, and also, who's his face that we just said? James Robinson also has an 86. So
yeah. Well, don't compare cross positions. Don't compare cross positions.
PFF
you never
special.
know. PFF special. You never know. But if A.J. Brown has the same rating as Cole Beasley, there's something broken. There's a broken piece there, in my opinion. Because again, Madden ratings don't compare Madden ratings. I'm looking at the camera. Don't compare Madden ratings to PFF grades. PFF grades are across the sample size. You were this grade in 2020. They are not, you're this graded player and this is how good you are. Projecting.
It's how you played, it's not how
it's how you played, not how you're going to play. Madden ratings are how you're going to play in this game. Yeah. Like how good you are as a receiver. Comparing them to PFF grades is false because their previous performance, whatever. So if you're saying entering the 2021 season, the same rating for the same thing, A.J. Brown and Cole Beasley, like, I don't know. Like, I do think that That's a little ridiculous. I mean, A.J. Brown has 93 acceleration. Cole Beasley has 88. I don't know. I don't know if I can get on board with that. That just feels a little tight. But, and that's not even bringing up all the vaccine stuff with Cole Beasley. That's purely on field. Awareness for Cole Beasley, 90? I mean, how is this even a conversation? All right, let's get off the hating on the wide receivers. This has been a fun segment. I'm actually having a good time. All right, tight end here. Most egregious tight end ranking for you.
It's Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron has been an afterthought of a lot of passing offenses. He averaged 1.18 yards per route last year. Barely scraped to 10 yards of reception for 558 yards. I get that he had 558 yards, but he was in a very pass-heavy offense. And he's an 83 in this game. An 83.
I love how you keep saying in this game.
In this game.
I love how serious this conversation is.
I mean, Jonnu Smith's an 81. Kyle Pitts is an 81. That's no. Eric Ebron is just not. He's not a 83 suggests a starting quality, whatever at your position. That's just not. I don't want to shit up too much, but apparently I just did.
I honestly have no comments on the tight end stuff. Tight ends are hard. I mean, the sample sizes are small, but they do have Tommy Tremble at a 70 already, which I think is kind of hot.
Ooh, Tommy Tremble, nice.
Better than Albert Okwuegbunam, Ian Thomas. Kelvin Benjamin's a 69 tight end.
Hey.
That's not bad. Decent talent. All right, off of the tight ends here, let's get to offensive tackle. Egregious. Where's the egregiousness?
They have Orlando Brown and Mekhi Becton as 82s. I mean, Mekhi Becton's just the far superior tackle at this point. And now there's a few other ones on the tackle list that I would say are iffy, but that one's just no one's taking one over the other.
Yeah, but how much of that is like projecting? Or you're saying like for
even
one
just
play
from last year?
Yeah,
what we saw from them.
They also split left tackle and right tackle, don't they?
Well, yeah, they have the whole how they break up positions. Different story altogether. That's for a different day. But that rating is the most egregious tackle rating, in my opinion. Or Dwayne Brown at an 83 was right above them because Dwayne Brown was fantastic. Perennial top 12 to 15 tackle, and he's an 83. He's Eric Ebron good for tackles.
Don't compare across positions, you piece of shit. All right, into your offensive line. Go.
Alex Mack.
Oh, this is the pedigree.
This one's we got to give it to him. He's the name, even though he clearly had lost it. His contract this year that he signed said as much. 65.9 PFF grade last year, and he is an 86 in this game. Not so bueno.
You probably can't do that, with Alex Mack. How good is Alex? Where would you rank Alex Mack right now among centers? Is he a starter?
Yeah, he's maybe like 24th, 25th best center in the league, somewhere in that range. He reminds me of. It kind of reminds me of like Jeff Saturday leaving the Colts, going like everyone kind of knew. Mm-hmm. You try to get one last hurrah out of him. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Packers could not. So we'll see if the 49ers have better luck.
Before we get to defense, college football season is just around the corner. To celebrate, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook, is putting new players in the center of the action with $200 in free bets instantly. If you bet $1 or more on any college football game this year, DraftKings Sportsbook is a safe, secure, and reliable sportsbook located right here in the United States, so it's easy to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF. That's PFF to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any college football game. That's promo code PFF to get your free $200 in free bets instantly. For a limited time, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. With it, we go to defense. Defense. Defensive tackle. 92 for Chris Jones. That is obviously too low. How is he not a 95-plus player?
Yeah, he is one of the closest thing to Aaron Donald. It's not like particularly close, but he is as dominant a defensive tackle from a pass rush perspective as we've seen, not named Aaron Donald. Going back 15 years of PFF grades, he had a 93.1 pass rush grade this past year. He was as good as it gets, as good as we've seen outside Aaron Donald. And he's like 92 is that's like the 4th, 5th best player for a respective position at pretty much any other position. It's just too low.
I mean,
they got Fletcher Cox ahead of them, and again, that's a very much, not to shit on Fletcher Cox, he's a great player, but that's a pure reputation play to give him that grade at this point in his career.
I just noticed that both Aaron Donald and Myles Garrett play right end in this game too, which is an interesting position designation. I do think that that is egregious, and it looks even worse when you look at defensive end or right end, left end, whatever it's being called in the game. I do think that something that's absurd is J.J. Watt is a 94, 2 points above Chris Jones right now. 2 points above Chris Jones, and better than even Cameron Jordan. I mean, like J.J. Watt, where's J.J. Watt for you right now among defensive ends?
Oh, gosh. I mean, outside the top 10.
Yeah. And he's right now number 3, or I guess number 2 behind Myles Garrett. He's the second best defensive end in this game.
Yeah.
That I can't get on board with.
Can't get on board with.
All right. Defensive end for you, what was the most egregious?
Defensive end for me, I didn't want to shit too much on anyone at the high end, especially with one that was a friend of the pod. That's a 90, plays for the Ravens. He's a great friend of the pod.
Nick Bosa?
But that was a little too high.
No, Calais Campbell.
But the one I'll say is Montez Sweat is the same in this game as the likes of Michael Brockers, Hassan Reddick, and Emmanuel Ogbah. Ask any GM in the world right now who they want on their team.
Between Montez Sweat and Emmanuel Ogbah?
Emmanuel Ogbah, Hassan Reddick, and Michael Brockers. Now,
Michael Brockers is also an 82?
A little bit of a different position, but in this game, they're listed at the same position.
It's hard to say.
And also, Dexter Lawrence is listed at the same position as Montez Sweat, which I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought here trying to keep track of all this. But just the comparison you need to know is Montez Sweat's an 82. So is Hassan Reddick, Michael Brockers, and Emmanuel Ogbah.
This next one for linebackers is incredible. Rashaan Evans.
This is an inner team one.
Yeah, Rashaan Evans at an 84, and then his teammate, Jayon Brown, at a literal 82. Again, yeah. I think Rashaan Evans is a pedigree, right? It's first rounder. It's speed. It's also like so much of this overall rating is a formula coming from like what their
combine
attributes are.
Yeah.
And if your attributes are high, your overall rating is going to be high. That's why I do think that, like, again, take this with a grain of salt. If you're listening, Madden, we're friends with the guys from Madden. If you're listening, we understand the struggle. Like the struggle is that you're trying to give people the right ratings, like the right attributes. And then that leads to some formula that produces this overall rating. And that's what, like, oh, you think this guy's better than this guy? That's difficult. I'm sure they also don't have any control on whether Dexter Lawrence is a left end and Montez Sweat is a left end. I don't think they have any position designation control. At least I'd hope not.
But Rashaan Evans being 84 and Jayon Brown being 82, and I mean, Jayon Brown's just been the better linebacker over the last 3 years for them. That one feels a little egregious.
Any other linebacker ones that kind of got you excited at least? Fred Warner's the number 1 linebacker at 94. Levante David at 93. That's good. Better than Devin White. Some people don't see that. Given to Demario Davis, a PFF diehard. CJ Mosley a little high at 84. Nick Kwiatkowski at 81, who might not even be a starter for the Raiders this year.
Which is good though. I mean, he should be.
He should be. All right, last 2 positions here, cornerback and safety, and then we'll jump to the Bruce Feldman interview, the Jeff Thomas interview, the Addazio interview, Jaquarii Roberson, talking to everyone in college football before things heat up, before the rebrand. By the way, this rebrand's coming in. It's coming in hot. Logo approved by Mike Renner. Name approved by Mike Renner. Chris, Neil, George, big shout out to these guys getting this thing approved. This rebrand's going to be sexual. It's going to be violent, and I'm stoked for it. That starts August 23rd. We're also going to do 3 episodes a week starting August 23rd. That's going to be an absolute treat. All right, cornerback. Trayvon Mullen of the Las Vegas Raiders is the same overall, an 80, as Jamel Dean of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And L'Jarius Sneed of the Chiefs. 2 of those guys have played good football.
If I was going to guess any position where you probably see the most absurdity, I do think that it would be corner. And I think where Madden gets away with things, though, is the top 10 is easy. You can kind of like fluff the grades and fluff the things to get the top 10 in a good place.
What are we fluffing?
I don't know what we're fluffing, but we're fluffing something.
Okay.
But once you get outside the top 10, you're kind of like paying less attention to the Mullen versus Jamel Dean scores. Yeah. That's when things get a little dicey.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Oh, wait a second. This guy's the same rating as this guy. We probably like Cole Beasley, AJ Brown. We might have fucked something up there. Like that's where I think that gets overlooked sometimes.
Yeah, but that one's just. I mean, I get for the Raiders, you really couldn't go as hard in on them as we traditionally do. But I don't see anything. Mullen just hasn't done anything to warrant an 80. Sorry, he hasn't. Besides, like, they just give that to starters, like the baseline for a starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Harris Jr., the same rating as Kyle Fuller and Marshawn Lattimore. I thought that was interesting. William Jackson, better than J.C. Jackson. Another one. Bradley Roby, an 84.
That one fell high.
Oh, my gosh. Jason Verrett and Kenny Moore and Bradley Roby are all 84s. Bouye getting wrecked. Carlton Davis, an 83. All right, I'm done. Jumping lastly, Derwin James is an 88 overall in this game.
Same as Micah Hyde. Now.
Micah Hyde's good.
Micah Hyde's good. Deserves an 88. Derwin James, when he's healthy, is the best safety in the NFL. Just is.
That's a quote graphic.
So it's like either you give him an injury tag and you say, whatever, I don't know what that would even do, but grade his attributes and what he brings to the table correctly, at least. Don't just like split the difference on that injury. Either he's hurt and he sucks worse than that.
How in the hell are you going to go Derwin James is the most egregious when the third best safety in this game is Devin McCourty?
Devin McCourty's solid. Now,
he's the third best safety in this game.
That's a little bit of a
he's the best
holdover.
Free safety in this game.
It's basically saying
he's a 92 overall and he's the best free safety in the game.
It's basically saying that last year was an aberration instead of a start of a decline. Now, could have been. If he was 28, you would say that, but he's 33. So
I'm asking if he's the best free safety in the NFL.
2 years ago, it was. So we're in the mix. So, but I do think, like I said, they're usually lean towards being late to declines.
I mean, that's smart because, again, what matters?
Yeah.
You're not going to like drop Devin McCourty down to a 65 and then bring up some like guy who graded really well for PFF the last 2 years. And hey, you got to try out this guy. No, I get that. I mean, it makes sense. John Johnson at 86. Same as Kareem Jackson. How do you feel about that?
Not as egregious as Derwin James.
That's how I feel. Fine enough. That's not even an expression. Fine enough. All right. That's going to do it. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. I'm going to say that at the back end of the show as well. Let's jump to these interviews. Bruce Feldman, Jeff Thomas, Jaquarii Roberson, and Steve Addazio, the Colorado State head coach. And before you jump to those fantastic interviews, I got to let you know on something. I forgot to mention this. Home Field, baby. Home Field, new sponsor here at PFF. Proud sponsor of the 2-4 Drafts podcast. Home Field Apparel is a premium collegiate clothing brand out of Indianapolis. Incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel and vintage college designs. Home Field is in the middle of Big New Saturday, Season 2, where they launch a new school collection every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern for 16 weeks straight. They just recently released Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Florida. But this Saturday, we've got the Georgia Bulldogs. I got LSU and Texas at home. I ordered Aztecs. I ordered Florida. And I ordered, I believe, Texas A&M. I'm waiting to see if they can get some more coming around the corner. I think there's some teams I really, really like to get involved. I'm definitely going to be paying attention to Big News Saturday as those continue to move forward. And if you want to get this gear, use promo code PFF to get 15% off your first purchase at homefieldapparel.com. That is promo code PFF for 15% off. Get ready for college football tailgate season with Home Field Apparel. Now joining the 2-4 Drafts podcast is current The Athletic writer Bruce Feldman, the guy behind the Freaks List, did the 101 2021 Athletic Freaks List. Here is Christmas morning on this podcast, Bruce, when this list comes out, because it's honestly, and I think you hear scouts say this, you hear people that we work with in the NFL say this, it is such a fantastic resource to identify these literal freaks, these athletic freaks, specifically at those small schools, because everyone knows about Evan Neal, everyone knows about Derek Stingley and Linderbaum, these big names coming out of these big schools, but man, some of these small school kids, like Duggar was on this list a few years ago, that's where this thing really shows up. So Bruce, really great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the kind words too.
Where I'd like to start, and I know Renner is going to hit on some names here and some methodology, but I'd love to hear more, and for the readers or listeners that don't know about your methodology, just how connected you are to all these strength coaches, to all these schools. When does this process start for you? I know it's probably a year-round process, but when does it really heat up? And I guess speak to your methodology and just how often you're talking to these coaches and these players.
Yeah, it really ramps up a lot, probably in the last, I don't know, from beginning of April to whenever it runs. This year, we decided to run it, and I guess it was August 9th when it went up. Usually, sometimes it's in late July. But really, so I'll keep guys on kind of on my radar over the course of the football season if you hear of something or see something online. But for the most part, I've been doing this almost 20 years. I think it's like 17 or 18 years. And so I rely on a lot on football coaches, but also a lot on strength coaches and the relationships I've kind of cultivated over the years. And so, yeah, there'll be a handful of players who will reach out and then you try to verify what they say they've done, because now there's that nature of it. NFL scouts have been very, very helpful. And Jim Nagy and his crew from the Senior Bowl have been especially helpful the last couple of years. I've had really good calls with them. And so it's a great way to cross-check things and hear some different things. And, really, the strength coaches have been kind of a lifeblood of this, to be honest. And what has been really kind of a fun part of this is just, sometimes there's a lot of stuff that you're just hearing on the fly, and it takes on a life of its own a little bit, where you may hear from some in the last couple of years, especially. I think Duggar might have been the first non-FBS guy I had on there. And obviously he blew up and, ended up getting drafted by the Patriots. And at one point, there's a freak from his old school at Lenoir-Rhyne, and I DM'd Duggar and we talked about him. And then I got to know some of the guys on the staff, so they talked about him. And then what you find is, Robert Rochelle, who's now here with the Rams, I don't remember. I want to say he might have been a Senior Bowl a heads up guy that
he was.
Me. But then I talked to Nathan Brown, who I've gotten to know, who's the head coach at Central Arkansas. And he was like, I got a receiver here you may want to look at. And so that's how it goes like that. Jason Eck, who I've known for years, he's one of the better coordinators in college football, really, but he's at South Dakota State. And I actually did one of his games a couple of years ago for Fox when they opened up against Minnesota. And I asked him, hey, do you have anybody? And he got back to me like over the weekend. He's like, yeah, we got a safety here who started out as a Division II walk-on. And that guy, his measurables match up with anybody, so you see some of those where maybe they're a late bloomer. Maybe it depends on, a lot of times I feel like it's late bloomer guys, but sometimes guys are just under the radar, and maybe you wouldn't hear about them until maybe the East-West Shrine game if they get into one of those or something like that. But that's just kind of how this thing has evolved over the years.
You mentioned you kind of have to rely on your contacts and trust them. And that reminds me of when Shane Ray, back maybe 2014, when you had him running reportedly a 4.4, 440 at a 42-inch vertical. And then he comes out as pro day, runs a 4.68 and has a 33-inch vertical. Is there any time you felt like you've been sold a bill of goods on a guy by some strength coach, some, maybe DM, where it didn't actually come to fruition?
There's been a few. There's some schools that I'm a little more wary of with their numbers, and there's others that I'm not. Penn State, like some of the numbers that come out there, I had Saquon number one, 4 years ago or whenever it was. And people would see numbers about Micah Parsons. They would see numbers about Owe and some of these, look what those guys Mike Gesicki, look what those guys ended up doing when they went to the combine. People can, like I had this year, Aiden Hutchinson, number 2. And there were some really remarkable numbers that one of the guys on their staff had passed along with me. You look at the numbers of, I've had 3 years ago, we had Rashawn Gary number 1, and then last year, Kwity Paye. Look what those guys did when they went to their pro days or went to their combine. The first one I remember who was like no way these numbers are made up was Margus Hunt, who I don't know if you guys remember, but he was a Estonian track star who ended up at SMU. Marcus Hunt almost matched those numbers at Indy. Just the freak of all freaks. And so there are definitely some where I had a defensive lineman from NC State who didn't get to work out, who was just, super explosive athlete. And all the guys I know who were in that program were like, no, he's legit. But then I think he went to the combine on his first 40, pulled his hamstring or got injured. And that was basically the freak show didn't unfold there. So, there's always some of them where you're like, okay, is this guy going to do this? And then there's, I'll be honest, I didn't know about Byron Jones from UConn, and he's, what does he have, the world record for the broad jump, from what he did at the combine and just crazy, freaky stuff. So there's going to be guys you're going to miss on either side of that. I don't think I had Dontari Poe doing exactly what he, going as freaky as he did, but it's kind of fascinating what you hear from inside of programs and then what actually happens, whatever it is, a year or two later when they get to Indy.
A specific name I want to bring up. I talked to his head coach, Jeff Brown, the Purdue head coach, a couple weeks ago on this podcast. But George Karlaftis, who, when I talked to him, he didn't speak a ton to the 25 to 15% body weight. He didn't speak to his 4.69 40. What he did speak to, and I think you have it highlighted in here a bit, is just the work ethic. This guy is an absolute lunch pail to work monster. And I guess from the anecdotes that you got from the people at Purdue or Karlaftis himself, how impressed were you with his kind of body of work, in addition to obviously the insane measurables?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. So Mark Hagan is his position coach, and he's a guy I've known for a long time. I've been at different programs, and he's been around some big time guys. And he said, just the preparation, the attention to detail. It's an hour of hand-to-hand MMA drills. Then it's an hour of film study. Then it's an hour of prehab and agility work. So he is really training like a pro right now. And so I think one of the cool things that's been about this is it's not just about the numbers and about the testing and the timing. You start to hear in a lot of them some of the kind of the lifeblood of how they get to be so freaky because of how much they care, how much they're into it, and what they do to get to that level. And he's definitely an example of that. He was a huge recruit for Purdue, had a big freshman year. Then they didn't have much of a year last year, but I expect him to have a huge year this year for them as well.
I want to bring up two guys that didn't actually make the list, because when I was thinking about, over the course of summer, going through the top prospects, thinking about guys who I would assume would be top 5, top 10 on this list, Derek Stingley came to mind, Kyle Hamilton came to mind. Those guys made it. Two that didn't, though, were Oregon's Kayvon Thibodeau, the defensive end there, and Texas A&M's Kenyon Green, because watching them, to me, they were the best athletes at their respective position. Did you hear about either of those guys, or where were you with both of them?
Yeah, Thibodeau is definitely a guy. I mean, he's somebody I spent a bunch of time with around Pac-12 media days a couple of weeks ago. In terms of those guys, there's a few guys at A&M who I think I was in consideration on. It's just hard to keep this list to that. I mean, I had two guys from Oregon, both like Thibodeau, but a little younger, were huge recruits for them. Penei Sewell's younger brother, Noah, as well as Justin Flo, just put up crazy numbers on the GPS. It doesn't mean that Thibodeau is not going to really impress people when he actually gets through the NFL draft process. But those are the guys that really popped in terms of when I talk to people at Oregon, in terms of just what it is for this list.
Yeah, Noah Sewell, those numbers were pretty absurd. And he's coming obviously with bloodlines, Penei Sewell too. The other person I wanted to bring up, the other player, Derek Stingley Jr. I was not surprised to see him on this list. He's number 9, clocked a 4.3 40-yard dash, 6'1", 193. He's lost weight. He's leaner. He's meaner. What I love here too, listed at cornerback, wide receiver, and kick returner. In the research that you did around Stingley, obviously looking at the numbers, how much did you talk to strength coach Tommy Moffitt and LSU about how legit this is, that Stingley is going to play both sides of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a guy who they talked about this when he got there by his third year. That was the expectation.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, they think he can help him as a playmaker. I mean, in the return game, he's dabbled in it. I think they feel like with the ball in his hands, he's just a special athlete that he can make a difference for them. Right now, Keyshawn Butte had a big freshman year. I mean, remember, they went from Jamar Chase, the best receiver in college football. They had Justin Jefferson, and then Terrace Marshall, who had a nice year last year, albeit in a chaotic year. And then they were down to really a lot of unproven guys, and Butte really blossomed. He was a big recruit for them. He's the next one. But now I think you will see some of Stingley as a complimentary guy and as a guy that opposing defenses are going to have to keep an eye on when he goes out there, because he is a freaky athlete with just, Tommy Moffitt was the one who told me, he said he's lost 11 pounds since last year. And this is a guy who didn't have much room to lose, but that's how committed he is to just being the best he can be. And somebody really close to Stingley, he ran a 4.30 at a Nike combine when he was going to be a senior in high school. And that person was like, he's going to match, if not exceed, those numbers when he gets through the draft process.
So last year we asked you for a breakout player from the list, and sadly you went with Journey Brown, whose career forced to retire due to off-field injury issues. I'm gonna give you another chance here. Who is your breakout player from this 2021 list, if you had to pick one?
If I had to pick one, I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. Just everything I've heard from people inside that program is there's huge chip on the shoulder to prove people about how special he can be. He had a really good year 2019, and then last year was injury shortened, and it was just a chaotic year on a lot of fronts there. I think he can, he can be a big factor. Mike McDonald comes in. He was with the Ravens staff. I think you'll see a little bit of a different scheme. He's one I would think has a chance to have a really, really big year. I'm not saying he's going to lead them to the Big Ten title. I won't go that far because I think they have issues in the secondary and issues to sort out on offense. But I think he can be an All-American this year.
I think people forget too, when you turn on that Tristan Wirfs tape. I mean, Hutchinson was one of those guys that could actually go toe to toe with him. And I think obviously they've had such athletic freaks at Michigan that Hutchinson kind of gets underrated. Even Chase Winovich was more athletic than maybe people let on. A couple of players I want to bring up before Mike, I think, have one more question for you. But Minnesota, talk to PJ Fleck, and man, could he rave about Boye Mafe and Daniel Falele. He feels that these guys, I think his words were, will put up some of the best numbers he's ever seen in Indy. When they get to Indy, they're going to put up some absurd numbers. Not surprised that both those guys, the offensive tackle Daniel Falele and also the edge defender Boye Mafe, make the top 50 on this list. I guess speak to Fleck's enthusiasm around those two guys and kind of your expectations for them in 2021.
Yeah, Mafe was a guy they expected a huge year from last year, kind of got short-circuited a little bit. And he was productive. I just think in terms of he's gotten bigger and bigger since he's been there. He didn't come in very big. I think he told me he was about 215. Now he's 263. Very explosive athlete, 40-plus inch vertical. He has a chance for a defense, like that was a bad year for them last year out of the gate. And I think they're counting on him to be a real difference maker for them now. On Faalele, I mean, he was so raw when he came in from Australia. He really barely played high school football. They told me he was down about 30 pounds from where he was last year, just much more athletic right now, in much better shape stamina wise. I think that will help them a lot. And, they have a chance to, I think, be a lot better than people kind of gave up on them after last year. And everything I've heard from coaches I talked to on that staff, they feel pretty good. Like they're not necessarily going to sneak up on people like they did a couple of years ago when they had that run. But they should be a lot better than they were last year.
All right. So last question. We're here in Cincinnati. UC had 3 guys on your list. I believe that was tied for the most of any college in America. If they run the table, are they getting in the are they getting the college football playoff?
I'd like to say they would have a real decent shot. So let's start with this. They didn't finish the deal last year by beating Georgia, but I think people watch those CFP reveals and were like, man, they're getting screwed on this deal. But the problem for them last year was, and it was not their fault, they did not have any non-conference games of substance in there. Now look what they got. They got Indiana, who I don't think Indiana was fluky at all last year. If they beat them, Petnix Jr. at quarterback is back. I think they're still a really good team. And they have Notre Dame. Win both of those games on the road, they have a good chance, because I think what you have from them is SMU should be good. I think UCF should be good. Those games are both in Cincinnati. What really will be critical for them is not only to win those games against Indiana and Notre Dame, but then they need those two schools to turn around and have really good years. I mean, if Notre Dame can be undefeated with the exception of that game, that would be a huge chip in Cincinnati's favor. The problem would be if Cincinnati beats both of those teams, and I think there's a bye week in between those two road games for them. If they win those games, and Indiana goes 7-5 and Notre Dame goes 9-3, people are going to, the people in that room who are the people on the committee, they're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And it's fair or unfair, but that's just the reality of where the power brokers who sit in that room are. I think this is a really good team. Seen Desmond Ridder about a month ago out here. He was training with Jordan Palmer, big time athlete. He's one of those 3 freaks. And as I, tweeted out today, I could have had 7 guys on there. They have a 6'7" tight end who was also training out here, who vertical jumps 36 inches. Didn't have Trey Tucker on the list, but could have had him. Majay Sanders is you guys know this. He's an elite edge rusher. Beavers on the other side he's a linebacker, but he's just as big and almost as explosive. I mean, Luke Fickell has really, really upgraded the talent level since he took over. And I feel like this is a great window for them, but they're going to need some help. They're not only going to need to win their games, they're going to need those other teams to bounce back and have really big years too.
No, I'm glad you mentioned Luke Fickell. I think even if they don't make the college football playoff, what he's done to turn that program around has been nothing short of absurd. Like in terms of recruiting talent and actually winning football games and putting Desmond Ridder in a position to succeed. Like you could argue he's been one of the most successful, if not the most successful, group of 5 coach over the past 3-4 years. Bruce, this has been fantastic. We really appreciate the time. Make sure everyone follow Bruce Feldman on Twitter. That's Bruce Feldman, Feldman CFB. And also, we say this 1,000 times, subscribe to The Athletic, man. I mean, it is worth it for the Freaks List alone, but they also have a ton of other really good content. Bruce, really, thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Now joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is current Georgia Tech head coach, quarterback Jeff Sims. I said head coach because we've had Jeff on here. Jeff, great to have you on the show.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be here.
Man, we are excited for Georgia Tech football, and a big reason why is we had Jeff Collins on the show a couple weeks back, or maybe even a month back, and the energy this guy brings to every single conversation is absolutely absurd. What has been, obviously now working with Jeff Collins for a couple of years now, what has been your impression of Jeff Collins, and how much do you think he's really helped Georgia Tech football?
Yeah, Coach Collins, he's just a real genuine guy. He brings energy to the room, and he loves to have fun. He loves his players. He's had a big impact on a lot of our players. He's had a big impact on me, just showing me that I have to work for everything that I want, and just showing everybody that we have to earn everything that we want, and nothing is handed to us and nothing is guaranteed, and just making sure that everybody feels loved the same. We are an entitlement-free program, so he doesn't like to treat one person better than the other. So that's just something that that's great about him, because he makes sure that the team is valued equally.
He's also a big Atlanta guy. I know he's brought, a significant movement to like representing Atlanta and making Atlanta a focal point in the recruiting process. I know you're from Jacksonville. How has your acclimation to Atlanta been? What are some of your favorite things about the city?
It's really the views for me. I really like to drive. Like sometimes I'll go out at night and just drive around and see the view of Atlanta. But there's also a lot of great things to do here. I don't started golfing. That's just something that I picked up on while I was here. But the food here is amazing. Anytime me and my roommates would go out and get something to eat, it's something great because we choose something different each time. But everything in Atlanta is just a nice place to be.
Yeah. Who are your roommates?
Jalen Huff, Ryan King, and Miles Brooks.
Gotcha. How's the roommate life been? Have you been with the same roommates for 2 years now, or what?
Yeah, when I first got here, it was me, Jalen, and Amarian Brown. But Amarian left, and then Ryan and Miles enrolled. But yeah, those are my brothers. We just been together since they got here, since we all got here, and we've been with each other since.
Gotcha. Focusing back in on Georgia Tech offensive, the Georgia Tech offense specifically, I'm interested to know, I think there's a lot of question marks around this receiving core at Georgia Tech. Everyone's kind of asking who's going to be the guy for Jeff Sims in 2021. Who are you going to be targeting the most and maybe be that focal point of the offense? Who right now are you working with the most, and who are you most looking forward to, I guess, connecting with all season long?
Really all my receivers, they all been putting in a great amount of work this offseason, getting in the indoor with me and just having these sessions where we throw and work on timing. So I feel like all of them are going to have a great year this year, and I'm going to connect with mostly all of them. And they just going to be powerful as a unit.
Georgia Tech also loaded in the backfield. Running back room is loaded with talent. I'd be interested in bringing the focus back to you. What do you feel kind of is that next step in your development? I think I saw a piece recently talking about how you've improved, moving the defense, and your football IQ has improved so much. What's that next step now? What do you feel like is going to be different about your game in 2021? And I guess, how do you get there?
It's really just going out there and playing with the confidence that I know, I know what I can do. And I know where my strength comes from, and just going out there and having fun, not thinking about messing up or playing a perfect game, just going out there and playing a game of football.
So much of the game is confidence. I think at every position. I think I talked to a handful of coaches, and you talk about corner, offensive line, edge defender, quarterback, playing with confidence, specifically in those critical, fourth quarter situations. Just honestly, what separates the great from the good, for sure. I'd be interested here too. Kind of, what do you feel is that strength for you that kind of separates you from other quarterbacks? Is it that rushing ability? Is it an arm talent? What do you feel is kind of like your market identifier? What really separates you from the rest of this group here?
I just feel like I'm a versatile player. You know, I feel like I can do it all. I feel like I have one of the best arms in the class, and then I feel like I'm one of the most explosive quarterbacks. So I just feel like there's just a lot of things that I can do, and all that strength comes from God, you know. And I'm just blessed to be gifted with those abilities.
And then if you could add to, where do you feel like is your biggest area to improve? I know, obviously, you want to improve in a lot of different areas, but what are you kind of most identifying to improve this upcoming year?
Mostly my mental game. Just going out there and playing free-minded and going out there and just going out there without thinking a lot and knowing that I prepared for this. And really, another thing is preparation, just preparing better and getting a routine with that.
So I was going to press Alera a little bit. What has been kind of your preparation routine, specifically in the film room? What do you prioritize when you are turning back on the film, when you're looking at an opponent defense, or even watching film back on yourself? I'd be interested to hear how much are you watching film? What are you looking for on film? All that stuff.
Yeah, I try to watch film almost every day just to get those mental reps in. And most of the times I'm either watching film from last year, just to evaluate things that I did wrong last year and just go over those notes. And then sometimes I'm watching NFL cut-ups just to see how those NFL quarterbacks handle their game and manage the game. And then the majority of the time I'm watching the defense cut-ups just to get a clear view of what defenses will be in and the characteristics of them, and just to see like everything that the defense will do that'll try to get me, you know?
Yeah. Last question for you here, Jeff. I really appreciate the time. What are kind of your ultimate high-level goals for this upcoming season for yourself and for Georgia Tech football?
To win. That's the biggest goal. That's the biggest thing that's been on my mind and my team's mind is just to win and have a explosive season and just go out there and shock the world. And
Hell
play
yeah,
for
man.
each
Shock
other.
the world. Love that. Love that. Really appreciate the time, man. Have a good one.
Yes, sir.
Now joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is current Wake Forest wide receiver Jaquarii Roberson. Great to have you on the show, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having
me. We need to talk about this year. I mean, you entered the 2020 season, COVID-impacted season, with 13 career receptions there at Wake, and you absolutely explode. 92.6 PFF grade this past year, an absolute monster season for Wake Forest in what was an abbreviated year. 926 yards, 8 touchdowns. What all went? Did you know you were going to take off in 2020? And I guess what all went into kind of that breakout season for you?
It was COVID, so, we were dealing with that. I wasn't sure if we were going to have a season, kind of off and on throughout the whole season. But, going into the season, we lost a star receiver, Sage Surratt. And, we just kind of had guys in the room that were really just guys and, didn't have any experience on their belt. I've been there for about 3 years before that. So I knew I had to, step up. I was the older guy in the room. It was just more of, leadership thing. I knew once I had the opportunity, I was going to perform pretty well. But it was a great experience, and it was really, really fun, being able to play out there, being comfortable. But, after Sage left, it was just, it was go time from there, and I had to be at my best ability.
And something I'd also be interested in is going into this season, obviously played 76% of the snaps this past year from the slot. And early in the year, you're playing almost exclusively from the slot, but then later started to get more opportunities on the outside. Do you imagine your role changing significantly in 2021? Do you think you'll get more reps on the outside, or is the plan to still use you and primarily from the slot?
I think, going into it for sure, I'll still be a slot receiver. Depending on how the year go, how guys stay up, I might do some rotating, might be a little bit outside. But, it's good to, get a little bit of both. So I'm very excited, for what's in store for the 2021 season for sure.
Something I find, fascinating about your game specifically is even on a high average depth of target, you're consistently, getting targeted down the football field, 10.4 average depth of target this past season. You're still forcing a ton of missed tackles and gaining a ton of yards after contact and after the catch. Is that something that you prioritize, when you're game planning, or I guess where do you see that as the strength? Is that like a notable strength for your game, or are there other things that you feel like you're better at?
Certainly, yeah. I think I'm better at other things, but I think that's one thing that really sticks out with me. You do a lot of prep before the game. Figuring out defenses, figuring out where the spots you can get them at. And I think our coaches really do a good job of, presenting that to us, during the week. So it makes it a little easier, when game time come and, the defense not really expecting what you're going to do. And it definitely makes it a lot easier. And, I just try to find those holes, try to, catch the ball, break tackles, get yards after the catch. What we really need, explosive plays, win games. And, our coaches live by that, and then they try to engrave that into the players and, just go out there and you execute.
And where do you feel like the biggest opportunity for your game to improve is, I guess, or what are you prioritizing this offseason to get better at ahead of 2021?
So I've been working on, little things, being faster, being a little quicker on the feet, getting in and out of breaks, catching those low balls. And I just been working on the little things, timing with Sam Hartman. Most importantly, being a better leader for the younger receivers in the room, just trying to guide them and be there and support them, making sure they know the in and outs just as good as I do. And, just being consistent, throughout all 12 games, 13 games, we only played 9 last year. And then COVID, we had almost a month off and, I wasn't as strong as I was the game before I left. So, just being consistent, being the same person every day going into practice.
Yeah, so that's interesting. What weight did you play at this past season? I guess what are you aiming to play at this upcoming year?
So I think I played very consistent last year at like 183. I was there for throughout the year. I wanted to get my weight up to about 190, but I don't know how I was gonna, be able to run, with that weight. So I'm thinking like around 180, 187, 188 range this year. That's the goal. I've been shooting for that, but with all camp and all the running, I have to be able to maintain that weight. But we shall see.
Adding weight can be tough, man. Absolutely. Especially for someone who is obviously working out as often as you are. I'm interested here, obviously a veteran receiver here at Wake Forest. You've probably had a lot of opportunities to kind of perfect your film study process. And in a given game week, I'd be interested to hear kind of what your process is when you're looking at an opposing defense or an opposing corner and what you look for specifically before you enter that game.
So, going into the week, coaches put together a little scouting report on each guy, but mostly I'm against the strong safety or, the nickel back. But, I try to, get in the film room with my quarterback at least like 2 or 3 times a week, just to kind of go over specifically me, slot position and the safety and the nickel, just to get more details with him. And then I kind of focus on that one individual or 2 individuals and, just kind of personnel wise, to know what they're doing. They backpedal and see what they're good at and see what they're bad at and see where I could beat them at.
Have you had any opportunities to go back and watch film of yourself from this past season? And if so, kind of what did you pick up from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I probably watched, every single ball I catch, every single ball I dropped or every single play, probably about 3 or 4 times. And it's interesting because, when you're watching yourself, you're like, wow, like, you could have done this differently. You got to get your conditioning up, you're tired right here. That's not good to put on film. And then you want to, you don't want to look like that. You want to correct those mistakes and you want to be a lot better, on the back end or whenever you get another opportunity. You just don't want to put those bad plays on film. You want to just try to be the same.
Or do you have any opportunities to watch film on NFL guys or even like old college players? Do you like ever try to pick up, bits and pieces from other players' games?
Yeah, definitely. I watch a lot of Stephon Diggs. I watch a lot of Keenan Allen. Devontae Adams, his releases off the line, are impeccable. And, it's just exciting, seeing those guys at that level, being consistent, every single play. And, I try to relate that into my game and understand that is a very important part of the game. So
I got to be honest. I talked to a ton of receivers. I feel like every single one watches Stephon Diggs. I think Diggs needs to know that, man. I got to get Diggs on this podcast. Like, dude, every single person looks up to you, my friend. That's awesome to hear. I think the last piece I have for you, Jaquarii, I really appreciate the time. This is going to be a hotly contested top ACC receiver battle in 2021. Obviously, Justin Ross of Clemson is a really talented receiver, and there's a handful of others. Is one of your goals to kind of be that best receiver in the ACC, compete with guys like Ross and the others?
Yeah, certainly. You want to be at the top of the top. I think I really have a really good opportunity, a good chance, just go out there and produce. Justin Ross is a good receiver, and I hope he have a really great year coming off this injury. But we're going to compete. We're going to go at it, try to put up the same numbers. Going to be a very effective receivers in the ACC together. But, we got some great guys out there in the league. We have the receiver for BC is going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have a good receiver core this year throughout the ACC for sure.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate the time, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Yep, thank you. Have a good day.
Now joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is current Colorado State head coach Steve Addazio. Steve, great to have you on the show.
Well, great to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely, man. Where I'd like to start, honestly, is with this offense. I really do think first year offensive coordinator John Budmeyer coming in. I'd love to hear what you feel, and coming from Wisconsin, he's going to bring to this offense. And I know you have some turnover, not turnover at the quarterback position, but with Centeo there. What is Budmeyer going to do for this offense for Colorado State? And I guess speak to kind of the expectations you have for him and this offense.
Well, I think John is extremely like-minded. Coming from Wisconsin, we had a lot of similar philosophical views. He's very familiar with our run game. And I think we just match philosophically extremely well. I've got a great deal of trust in John and his thoughts. He's a bright guy, really good quarterback developer. So I'm quite excited. I especially like his teaching progression in the throw game, and the way that he presents that, I think, is exceptional. So I think it's going to be just a really great blend here.
And also with him, also working with Todd Centeo there, speak to that relationship that they've developed, that connection. I know Budmeyer has mentioned some Russell Wilson comparisons coming from Wisconsin. I know he's also said his accuracy needs to improve. But what's the update on kind of their relationship and that development there?
I think it's great, and I think that John's done a great job with Toddy in terms of really working on one of the things we wanted to really do is really make sure that Toddy is a complete student of the game. I mean, the relentless, it's not just come here and John presents, it's the pursuit of excellence. A quarterback is got to be continually working at the game, a student of the game. And just that development in that area of complete knowledge. We feel like when you know it, when you really know it and you can spit it back and draw it, then you can play fast. And that's been a big piece. And of course, I think John's great at simplifying the game, slowing it down so that guys can play fast. And along with that, I think comes accuracy, comes confidence, comes some other things that I think Toddy's made unbelievable strides with. He has tremendous dual threat physical skills as a runner and a thrower. He's got a great arm. And we saw that a year ago. I mean, and he's got good leadership traits. So we're very, very excited about Toddy. And then I think there needs to be great competition. We brought in Matt Vallecchi here from Boston College, and I think Matt is a relentless preparer and has great talent and physical skills as well. And I just think that competition brings the best out in everybody. So our starter, Toddy Centeo, we are very, very excited about him and feel like he could have a breakout year.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, he's also going to benefit a ton from having two of the most talented pass catchers in the Mountain West, if not the group of five. Trey McBride, the tight end there, and Dante Wright, the wide receiver. I know a handful of our analysts are really high on both of these guys. I guess speak to the expectations you have for them. And I guess, what's the ceiling for this duo? I really do think McBride and Wright could be the talk of the Mountain West as far as pass catchers go.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think Trey is a proven player. He's an NFL player. He might be the best tight end in the country, not the conference, but the country. And I think you'll see evidence. When I make those statements, I look at it through the eyes of, will he be a first round, second round draft pick? And yeah, he will be. So he's done it on the field. He's got a tremendous ceiling. He's one of the toughest guys I've been around. He's got tremendous ball skills. He's as dangerous as a receiver as he is as a blocker. That's really hard to find. And he's an elite player for sure. Dante, I tell everybody, I think Dante Wright is the best long ball tracker that I've seen since Marvin Harrison when I was at Syracuse back in the day. I mean, he is a long ball tracker. He just has this ability to run under balls and catch them. And that's a skill. I think he's elite. And then a guy you didn't mention, there's a couple guys, but, we can't talk about everybody, but, Cam Butler missed last season because of an Achilles tear. He's a tight end. I think he'll be an NFL tight end. He has elite skills in the receiving game and in the blocking game. And no one's talking about him. And I get it because, he missed last season with an Achilles injury. But having said that, watch out because he's another big bodied guy that has elite ball skills. And so those are what are mismatches? Those are mismatches. So they will exist there. And then, our backs are all really, have good ball skills. David's got elite ball skills. I can tell you that right now. So, you look at and you say guys that can, play at the next level, that can score. How do they score? They can score in the run game. They can score in the pass game. All those guys can score, including Toddy Centeo, because he can beat you with his legs.
Mm-hmm. Before we jump to David Bailey, who I'm really excited to talk about as well, I'd love to hear, with that much talent, you speak to McBride, you speak to Butler, Wright. I guess what that's obviously a challenge, a good one to have for Bud Meyer to factor all these guys into the offense. I guess, with where college football and the NFL is going, adding more skill players onto the football field, running more 4 and 5 wide sets, is the plan to spread the ball out and get these guys the football early and often? I guess, how does Bud Meyer overcome that challenge of making sure these guys get their touches?
Well, you're right. It is about touches. That doesn't mean we have a different philosophy here. We'll play in 12 personnel, but we'll spread the field with 12. More receivers doesn't mean you're going to score more. It's players that can score, right? You want guys that can score, and they come in all different styles. So, our challenge that we chart is, I think everybody should, and most people do, is how many touches is so-and-so going to get on a given day or in a given game, and making sure you have targeted calls that are going to get the balls in the hands of the best playmakers. That's our goal. That's what it's all about. That's what we want to do. And do you have enough of those guys? I've been in those meetings where you're like, we don't have enough. There's not enough conversation about enough people, and that's scary. So that requires a whole nother line of thinking. But we do have playmakers, and we do have guys that are explosive, that can score touchdowns and can, make an impact on a game. And it's our job to make sure that they're in position to allow them to do what they do best.
Let's talk more about your guy, the running back, David Bailey, transferring over from Boston College, 6 foot, 240, an absolute monster, a bruising back for Colorado State. Talk about touches. I'm sure he's high on the priority list. I think you've had high praise for him as well. Best back in the conference, maybe up there with some of the best backs in the country.
Well, David had proved it on a big stage in the ACC. It's not like it's a projection. He's done it. And he's an elite player. There's no question about it. And the beautiful thing is we have a bunch of really good players in the backfield right now. Marcus McElroy and AJ we have Vivens in our background and in our backfield. So we've got some guys, that I just think are electric, right? Like I think Marcus is a big, strong back, and he's got good speed. And I just think, Vivens is electric. And then you have David that can do it all. So it's not like, because you can't just play with one back, right? That's if you play with one back, that's one thing. But when you have, 3-4 backs, you can keep a guy that has, a lot of ability fresh, and other guys can score. I just really feel like, your backfield gets enhanced. So yeah, David's a pro back, will be drafted high.
Mm-hmm. I mean, embarrassment of riches there in the backfield for Colorado State. I want to pivot the focus too to the offensive line. I know in your first year you brought over some transfers from Boston College to really bring that offensive line forward. You know, the challenge of bringing a legit, ACC caliber offensive line to Colorado State. How has that development gone? And obviously having that background being an offensive line coach in college football for so long, I'd be interested to add a second piece to that question. And what do you feel is kind of the most important when you are developing offensive line talent at the collegiate level? How do you progress offensive linemen forward and take guys that are, 3, 4, 5-star recruits, but turn them into legitimate technical starters, technicians at the collegiate level?
Well, I've had a chance in my career to be involved with guys that have been rated pretty high, and you can develop them and they can become first-round draft picks. And then, of course, at places where you're not getting big star numbers, but you're bringing them in. And I mean, I like Chris Lindstrom at Boston College. I mean, he had no stars, but he's a first-round draft pick. So I just think that with the guys up front, first thing you have to do is establish a culture up front. And it has to be a really tough, love ball, passion for the game, a real tough culture, a culture that believes in fundamental toolbox and all those types of things. Once you establish that work ethic, that culture, that toughness, then it's the day-to-day development of those fundamental skills. I'm a believer that the offensive line can be made. And I think that's the beautiful thing. And, you can take a lightly recruited guy and develop into him a first-round pick. Just like on the flip side that I see a lot today in college football, where some highly talented guys, to me, are underdeveloped. Mm-hmm. They're not very productive. I think that's one of the most important positions on your team. We have a great young line coach in Louis Addazio, and he's just done a phenomenal job. And one of the things that's great for us here, for me, is the ability in my whole career. I've always had a guy that's played for me, GA'd for me, guys that are understand exactly the way I want it done, from the terminology to the details of the fundamentals, so that I can insert myself and I'm not counterproductive. So I think and so we end up with 2 line coaches a lot of times. And I just think that it gives us an opportunity. I believe that we can really develop an offensive line. And I believe we've done that here. I think one of the biggest areas of improvement you're going to see in this football team is that this line is going to be a physical, explosive offensive line that will be able to pick up pressures, adjust the movement, and handle multiple defensive schemes. So it all starts up front, both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
we're going to
100%.
be greatly improved up front on offense. And of course, I think we have the best front 7 on defense in the league.
Fantastic to hear, Coach. Really excited to see that for Colorado State football. Before I let you go, one more question. You brought up this before we started recording here. You got the best punter in the country there at Colorado State, Ryan Stonehouse. Yes. Give the guy some love.
No doubt. The biggest fear I have with Ryan, I tell everybody, is first time, like this guy, he reminds, he outkicks the coverage. And so what happens is you get distorted and your lanes break down. Sometimes you give those great returners a chance to kind of get started on the return, on the coverage unit. He flips the field all the time. I mean, McManus for the Broncos, I had him at Temple, and he was like that. I mean, the guy he flipped the field. So he's an unbelievable weapon. And he's elite for sure. No doubt about it.
Really appreciate the time, Coach. This has been awesome. And I really wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Excited to be back to college football.
Wow. Absolutely loaded show. Really appreciate everyone who stayed on to listen to every single interview, all freaking whatever this thing was, probably 2-3 hours of content. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Big shout out to Mike Quinn, producer Max Chadwick, Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, 2-for-1 Drafts.